In Egypt, 25 senior members of the Muslim Brotherhood get lengthy jail terms from a military court. Is it a crushing blow to the group? And what does the future hold for the Egyptian opposition? This is Inside Story. Hello, I'm David Foster. More than 20 members of the Muslim Brotherhood, a banned party, were jailed for up to 10 years on a range of charges varying from money laundering to terrorism. 15 others were acquitted after spending a year in jail. Amr al-Khaki reports now from Cairo.
Shock and disbelief as family members react to the sentencing of leading members of the largest opposition group in Egypt. The ruling against 40 members of the Muslim Brotherhood were handed down by a military court on Tuesday. It came after lengthy court proceedings that began in 2006, prompting criticism from rights activists, particularly for referring civilians to a military tribunal. In all, 25 members of the banned party were jailed for up to 10 years on charges varying from joining a banned organization to bankrolling. None of the family members were allowed to access the court, not even defense lawyers.
Upon hearing the sentences, some female relatives of the defendants fainted, and we were not allowed to film them. They didn't want to. But what's happening here is that emotion is high and anger is so clear.
We tried to stand near the camp. We stressed that we are first-degree relatives and that we must have access to attend the hearing. They responded by calling more troops to beat us up.
The court also ordered the confiscation of assets of 2 of the senior group members on trial. The financial penalties and long jail terms are believed to be aimed at crippling the finances of the group. The long-standing animosity between the government and the Brotherhood took a more confrontational turn after a martial arts parade in Cairo by young Brotherhood members in late 2006. A spate of arrests followed that expose, prompting the Brotherhood to distance itself from recent demonstrations and strikes. But that hasn't stopped the government from pursuing a zero-tolerance policy with the group, and even family members are waiting to hear the verdict on Tuesday. The defendants' family members who huddled at a mosque near the military camp after being chased away by security say they were shocked by the treatment they received. Now, as they try to cope with the rulings they have described as harsh, the future of the Muslim Brotherhood, which controls about 20% of the parliament, becomes more vague. And as members of the group begin serving their sentences, their families will have to think of ways to survive in an already struggling economy. Amr al-Khaki for Inside Story, Cairo.
Well, joining us now to discuss the latest sentences in Cairo, Mustafa al-Feki, head of the Egyptian Parliament's Foreign Relations Committee and a member of the ruling National Democratic Party. From Washington, D.C., Samer Shahata, assistant professor of Arab politics at Georgetown University. And on the line from Cairo, Essam El-Erian, a leading member of the Muslim Brotherhood. Let me come to Mustafa al-Feki first, member of the ruling party. Why was there a need here to put these men before a military court when another court, an earlier court, had said they should be freed?
It's of course anyone who is accused, he has to be to the court in front of his ordinary judge, not to the military courts by all means. This is understood. But it happens in the last 2 decades that a general impression in Egypt gives them the idea that whenever you go ahead with the normal courts, it will delay the case and it will never be as accurate and effective as the military court.
So was it a mistake
if they don't go to the military court?
Was it a mistake to use a military court here?
You know, they are civilians, and of course they are accused of causing violence or planning for that. That's why they consider it as a military case. This is what they see it. But in another interpretation, you can see that they are civilians and they are working in politics, and I don't know what is the kind of crime they have been committed. And in this case, I don't prefer myself if they go to the military court.
So you think it was a mistake?
No, there is no mistake, but they feel sometimes that this kind of crimes, which are not pure political, sometimes they see that it's an introduction of violence, and they see that they have to go to the military court because it's more effective, and they can find a decision soon. I'll give you as an example, those who assassinated Rifat al-Mahgoub, the Speaker of our Parliament, they were released from the normal court. Those who was accused only of trying to assassinate one of our ministers were hanged by the military court. That's why there is a big gap in between.
Well, let's bring in Samir Shahata from Washington, D.C. One of those men who was jailed was a Muslim Brotherhood leading money man in charge of the finances, very rich man personally. Is this going to hurt them financially? Are they going to find it difficult to make ends meet, to carry out their program now?
I don't think so. I think that, of course, there will be an impact on the group's finances, but I think anyone familiar with the Muslim Brotherhood realizes that this is a grassroots movement, and that most of the funding for the activities of the Muslim Brotherhood, whether it's charitable activities such as medical clinics and other kinds of social welfare work, or political activities like funding political campaigns and so on, are largely the result of individual donations, small donations from members, from regular people who are members of the organization and believe in its mission. So although I think it'll have some impact, certainly, there's no question about that, I don't think that this will be very significant in terms of the finances of the organization.
All right, we'll come back to you in just a moment, maybe go into the money in more detail at that point. But I'd like to bring in SM El-Arian, leading member of the Muslim Brotherhood himself, jailed and then released in 2005. Mr. El-Arian, when you heard the terms of the sentences up to 10 years, were you surprised at what you felt was the severity of them? Because some people feel they were fairly lenient.
Yes, of course. That is injustice and extraordinary tribunal. And the people, the innocent people in front of those judges, military men, were tried for more than 16 months. Of course, that is against the statement given by Dr. Al-Fiqhi that there is delay in the ordinary courts. And on the other hand, you have a civilian court finished a very public opinion case about blood bags, which is were accused by disturbing the or not accurate bags. They take only about 6 months.
Okay, let me cut in here. Let me cut in here because I want to go back to the earlier point I made, which was that some people believe the sentences were quite lenient, and that maybe some kind of deal has been cut between the ruling party and the Muslim Brotherhood. You know, we won't come after you so hard if there's some kind of accommodation that we can reach with you, because we're more afraid of other opposition groups than we are of the Muslim Brotherhood.
Let me say something. Those people were not accused by violence, not preparing for violent activities. They were accused only by affiliating to outlawed organization. And the verdicts were half severe, and innocent people, noble people feel if they only was sentenced by 1 month or 1 hour, that is unfair, that is unjust, of course. But let me also say that that is not mistake to put ordinary people, normal people in front of military court. That is a crime. According to constitution, according to the normal law, that is a crime to try people out of their normal judge. And also, as Dr. Samir said, those people was accused by money laundering, and this was dropped by the court itself.
Yes, a number of people a lot of people were acquitted. Again, some people suggesting that that's a little bit of a surprise to them. Samir Shahata, not only were you being addressed by Mr. El-Arian there, but also you were shaking your head at some of the comments or some of the points that I was making. What would you like to say?
Well, I think there are a number of points that have to be made. And as Dr. El-Arian said, this is certainly not justice. I mean, your question was that was there some surprise at the leniency of the sentences? I mean, I think that's not the case. these are, for the most part, regular, ordinary individuals, civilian individuals who've been engaged in politics. None of them were caught with any weapons. There were no real plans of violence or anything like that. These are known individuals. They're operating above the ground. So these are innocent people who have been tried in some cases and found guilty and are going to serve 7 years in jail. So that's not lenient by any stretch of the imagination. But I think the more important point is this. This was a politically motivated trial. These were not real charges. This was a politically motivated trial. This was a mockery of justice. And this is part of the Egyptian government's ongoing campaign of political deliberalization or repression that's following the victory of 88 candidates of the Muslim Brotherhood in the 2005 elections who are now members of parliament. That was quite shocking for the regime. There was a moment of political opening in 2005 and the beginning of 2006. And since then, we've seen a wave of repression. And this is just one aspect of that political deliberalization, of closing the political space.
Okay, let's bring in Mustafa Al-Feki to answer some of those points. Head of the Egyptian Parliamentary Foreign Relations Committee, member of the ruling National Democratic Party. Mr. Al-Feki, once again, let me ask you about your feelings as a representative of the government to the Muslim Brotherhood. Do they represent a threat to Mr. Mubarak and his regime?
You know, I do believe that the Muslim Brothers are there and we have to accept them as a political fact in the Egyptian street. I may be against their teachings and the way of thinking, but I'm after giving them the right to express themselves. They are members in the parliament with us. As you have just mentioned, we have 88. Now they became 87. One of them has passed away, sadly to say. That's why I do believe that giving them the chance to express themselves, it's better, very better completely than what we are suffering now. There is a kind of engagement between the Muslim Brothers and the government. We want to find a breakthrough to make a disengagement by a kind of dialogue, common understanding, mutual exchanging views, because I don't think that will continue like this. Each elections we have a problem. Each time we have another problem. And they go to the court and the government is accusing them and they are accusing the government. I think this is delaying the democratic process in Egypt. It's a big problem. It has to be solved in one way or another.
All right, time for us to take a short break. When we return, we look at the future of not just the Muslim Brotherhood, but also other opposition groups and their role in Egyptian politics. Stay with us if you will.